Hi, this is Bob Duchesne. And one of the problems with Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine is that I sometimes learn things about the outdoors that I wish I didn't know. For instance, in a few minutes, I'll be asking Maine's foremost shark expert what the odds are of being killed by a shark.
Yeah, cows actually kill more people. you know? I mean,
that's why I'm fighting back. I'm eating my share.
Yeah, right, exactly. So cows, horses, all those kind of things.
Cows kill more people than sharks do.
Yeah, I mean, according to some of these stats that are out there.
Dr. James Sulikowski is my guest on Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine. Somewhere at the University of New England in Bedford, there's an office door with his name on it, but chances are that he's out in the field doing some real research. He's been given the nickname Dr. Shark. It seems like shark attacks are on the rise around the world, or at least we're paying more attention, or at least the media is sensationalizing it more. I blame YouTube because these days we often get to see the attack, which is actually kind of cool in a very sick kind of way. Anyway, do we have sharks? How much do we have to worry about them? How many are there? How many kinds are there? Today's whole show is about sharks. Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine is brought to you by Hammond Lumber, Dice Arts, EBS, and Supercuts in Bangor, Brewer, and Old Town. Sharks. We've got them. Don't tell me you're surprised, because we have dolphins, porpoises, whales, seals. All the other ocean critters are out there. Yes, we have sharks. We even have great white sharks. Dr. James Sulikowski is the foremost expert in Maine on what's going on out there when it comes to sharks in the salt water. He gets around, but he's usually training the next generation of marine biologists at the University of New England in Bedford. So, welcome to Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So, does any TV or radio station ever do an interview with you without throwing in the theme from Jaws?
That's become pretty standard fare right now.
Yeah.
But that's okay.
Well, I wonder how many listeners even know there is a shark and fish research lab in the state of Maine. I didn't know it.
Yeah, I mean, my research kind of spans all over the place. Here in the Gulf of Maine, we're doing quite a bit of work with poor beagle sharks. But
poor beagle shark?
Poor beagle, yeah.
Okay, I've heard of it, but just barely.
So it's in the family. They're lambdid sharks, so they're related to makos and white sharks and thresher sharks and things on that nature. They're pretty interesting species in that everybody in that family, they maintain their body temperature a little warmer than the water, so they can thermoregulate like we do, which makes them pretty apex type predators.
How long ago did we figure out the sharks aren't exactly cold-blooded?
It's relatively recent research. I mean, we've known that there's been species that can regulate their body temperature, such as tuna and whatnot. But, what species can do it, how well they do it, it's sort of like an evolving science for us. And, I mean, we really don't know, the extent of their capacities to do this. And that becomes interesting when you talk about climate change and global warming and, how that might affect them.
Mm-hmm. Well, the basic question, I suppose, is who is more dangerous, sharks to people or people to sharks?
If you were to listen to the media, you think that it'd be sharks to humans.
Don't listen to the media. What do they know?
Exactly. But the truth of the matter is that we're about 1 million times more lethal to sharks than sharks are to us. Probably even more than that. I think the numbers kind of vary from who you speak to, but for every one human that's attacked by a shark, there's something like 100 million sharks that are attacked by humans. So it's we have it a lot better off than the sharks.
Yeah, I mean, can we blame them for fighting back?
I know.
Yeah, really.
Well, part of the kind of the misconception of everything is that sharks don't attack human beings. Attack is like think of being mugged or somebody just coming up and doing for no reason. But sharks, our interactions with them, it's all traces back to their biology, and that they're apex predators. They're looking for food, and if we're in their sort of realm, then giving off signals that would normally be given off by their food sources, such as struggling and that kind of nature, they'll investigate and they'll, see if it's something that they should be eating.
Well, and one way to find out if they should be eating it is to taste it.
Exactly. And for most part, that sharks will taste you and then they'll let go. And that's what we typically have is these exploratory bites. But when you have rows and rows and rows of sharp teeth,
Yeah.
exploratory bite often leaves lots of damage behind it.
Yeah. Well, shark attacks have been making the news a lot this summer. Is this more than usual this year, or is media just hypersensitive?
I think if you were to look at the numbers, we're going to have to wait until it all settles out. It's probably going to be about the same that it normally is, maybe a little bit more, but nothing that's out of the ordinary, I don't think. You got to look at the fact that, people are getting in the water earlier in the season. There's, when you got more people in the water, then you're going to have more chance of interacting with, a shark that's swimming around looking for its next meal. So, that's a big factor. And then, there's been some climate, related issues, I think, where some of the areas down south have received less rainfall that makes the water more salty near shore. Bait fish are coming in closer. And so, normally the sharks are going to come in. So there's a lot of different factors that are kind of going into this. But, it's nothing that is alarming in any sense.
Yeah, I mean, the odds of you being eaten by a shark is much less than being hit by lightning.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny, they kind of put out all these crazy, what ifs, what do you have a higher chance of, coming in contact with? And lightning is definitely up there, being, attacked by a dog and, all these sorts of different, cows actually kill more people. I mean,
that's why I'm fighting back. I'm eating my share.
Yeah, right, exactly. So, cows, horses, all those kind of things.
Cows kill more people than sharks do.
Yeah, I mean, according to some of these stats that are out there, hippos are like,
oh yeah,
almost it's exponentially greater, than being killed by a hippo than a shark. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different things that can happen on a daily basis that are way more detrimental to your life than being, eaten by a shark.
Hey, quit it with the Jaws theme. One thing we need to sort out pretty quick is which sharks are likely to eat you, which sharks won't. I mean, there are a lot of sharks. Most of them have much more to fear from us. My guest is Dr. James Sulikowski. He's the shark guy. You'll find him at the University of New England in Biddeford when he's not out on the ocean. Great white sharks. That's next when Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine continues on Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket. This is Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine on Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket. Shark attacks seem to be making the news more often this summer. Is it because attacks are on the rise? Or is it because we've gotten so used to dumbed-down news that shark attacks just get more press than nuclear agreements with Iran? My guest is Dr. James Sulikowski, a.k.a. Dr. Shark at the University of New England in Biddeford. So, great white sharks, are they really the big kahuna of sharks, or do they just have better press agents?
Well, they are, if you look at just their size, their mobility, the ability, they're one of those species that can control their body temperatures, which makes them, kind of more adaptable to different environments. They are definitely the sort of the big kahuna. There's a couple that are close behind. Tiger sharks are one of those species, and where we actually are doing a lot of work with them, some colleagues down in the University of Miami, off the coast of Bahamas. So, we are really interested into all these how these apex predators are, using their environments and how we can better protect and manage them.
Well, when we talk about the dangerous sharks out there, because not all sharks are dangerous, what are the species that always make the list of dangerous sharks? And you mentioned great white and tiger, I think.
Yep. The usual suspects are white sharks and tiger sharks for sure, and then bull sharks. Those are the ones that are notorious for their interactions with human beings.
Bull shark.
And so bull sharks. Those are the top three. Bull sharks are of the ones that are most you have the best chance of interacting with. Bull sharks are the ones that are probably the ones that you're going to interact with in closer to shore, shallow waters, like the ones down in North Carolina and whatnot. They're kind of sharks that like to hang out in these little crevices, these little dips between the kind of sort of like the coast and a little offshore, just waiting for bait fishes and other things to come by. And so boogie board that's going across, looks like a nice little meal, and that's where you have this bull shark kind of investigating. So. Yeah, those are the top three culprits for sure.
The bull shark thing amazes me because, this had to be 25, even 30 years ago. I went snorkeling down at Key Largo. We were out there in the reefs, and as they're telling us to go into the water, they said, and by the way, you might see a bull shark down there. That's George. Don't worry. He's seen tens of thousands of snorkelers. Right,
I know. And it's like anything else. Again, the interactions that you're going to have with sharks that those are the top three notorious ones. Those interactions always come through them seeing us as food, right? And so these bull sharks there that may be taking a bite out of someone down in North Carolina or wherever it might be, the water's murky. When we swim, we're very much our actions are that of a struggling fish.
Yeah.
And so you toss that in with somebody fishing from the shore someplace down the road. All these things are alerting the shark senses that there's something in the water. So when you do your snorkeling or whatnot, there's nothing in there really to get them excited. They're not just going to come up and bite you. They're doing it because you resemble at that time something that they want to eat.
Well, that's what I read about every now and then when I ever delve into the subject. Is most of the attacks were really a mistake by the shark who just mistook the prey in murky water.
Right, exactly. And for a bull shark, they feed a little bit differently in that they go for it all. It's like competitive eating almost. Once you start, you don't stop. And so they take that bite and then they go again and again and again. That's their nature. It's that they're that species that is aggressive like that. And so black tip spinners, the ones that do that exploratory bite, they know immediately that it's not what they want, and they just are out of there.
Yeah. If they do take an exploratory bite, do they spit out?
They do, pretty much. I mean, it's one of those things where their teeth are so sharp, and it's like almost like a hot butter knife going through butter. That's how quickly and easily their teeth go through our flesh, and so they know immediately. Sharks have a very keen sense of taste, and we are not definitely on their menu. So for those species, so they kind of spit that right back out.
I can just picture that poor shark going, "Pooey, pooey, ooh, lawyer."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No good. Let me get out of here.
Yeah. Let's get a little scientific. Is the shark a fish?
The shark is a fish, okay. Absolutely. It has, one of the key characteristics of a fish is that it's got gills in order to respire in the water. So all sharks have gills. They need to extract oxygen from the water in order to breathe. So the only real, if you look at what we consider a fish, right, like a cod or salmon or something like that, and a shark, the only real big difference that they have is that a shark has no bones in their body, and they do not possess this thing called a swim bladder, which allows most fish to sort of hover in place without using any energy. And so those, amongst other kind of little things kind of going on with their morphology, those are sort of the big things. But yeah, they're fish.
So somewhere down the road, there was a split in the evolutionary chain, and things like sharks and skates, rays, what else went off into the cartilage area?
Yeah, so skates, stingrays, and sharks kind of went off in that direction. You can kind of throw there's like a kind of a cross between a shark and a bony fish. It's a chimera, but for the most part, sharks, skates, and stingrays are all sort of cousins out there swimming around. All cartilaginous. No bones. Their teeth aren't bones. Their backbones aren't bones. They have no bones in their body.
You mean their teeth aren't bones? What are they?
No.
Hardened cartilage?
No, they are a hardened cartilage. Yeah. They. So it's interesting. Sharks have what they do is they form these sort of calcium, almost crystals, that they stack on one another, that provides this hardness, and these structures such as a skull and their spine and teeth and their scales as well, that kind of gives it this extra sort of protection and makes them strong. If you feel a shark's tooth, you're like, oh my God, it's bone, but it's not. It's actually this fortified cartilage.
Well, why does it become razor sharp then?
I
mean, they don't chisel them down.
No, they don't. And so it's like anything else. These teeth, and what's interesting is that sharks develop a whole new row of teeth each month. So every month, they basically get a brand new set of teeth. They just fall out every month. And so they're on a conveyor belt. And imagine that, like anything else, they start out with as cells, and the cells are dividing, and they start to form structures and whatnot. And the DNA of those teeth, as they're being created, formed the structure, and that structure over time developed into be this very sharp, serrated in some cases structure. What's interesting is that all sharks have a different type of teeth structure, and
really?
For some instances, these exploratory bites, and in some cases, if it's a shark that's moved a limb from a human being,
Yeah.
You can actually get an idea of what species it is by the wound or the puncture marks that are left behind.
So when you find a shark's tooth on the beach, you can tell what kind of shark they came from?
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. A lot of them that you find on the beach are fossilized, and you can kind of trace that back to a different species. But yeah, I mean, in fact, if you look at some of the identification guides, not only do they give you, how do you tell, a porbeagle from a mako, but they also show you the differences in their teeth structures.
Hey, we talked about this. No jaws. Dr. James Sulikowski is a marine biologist who spends a lot of time studying sharks. He's at the University of New England in Biddeford. Most sharks look like sharks, but there are some real oddballs out there. Maybe a hammerhead shark is just Mother Nature's way of showing a sense of humor. Shark Shapes, next when Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine returns in a moment on Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket. This is Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine. Saturday mornings at 9, Sunday mornings at 8 on Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket. It seems like there are more shark attacks reported across the globe this summer. Or at least that's my excuse for doing a show on sharks. One of Maine's top experts is Dr. James Sulikowski, a marine biologist at the University of New England. And he's my guest this morning. Sharks come in all shapes and sizes, and some of them are pretty weird. So can you explain a hammerhead shark?
You know what? It's a really cool, interesting thing of evolution. And so, sharks have been around for, millions of years, hundreds of millions of years. And, during that early stage in their evolution, you had very interesting and different types of sort of divergent branches going off. So the hammerheads, for example. You also had a group that are strictly filter feeders. They have no teeth hardly at all, like the basking sharks and the whale sharks and manta rays, who just basically filter small organisms out of the ocean. So you had a whole bunch of these cool little, divergent, evolutionary trends that are taking place that allow, and this is what's interesting, that each one of these sort of allowed these different groups of elasmobranchs, or sharks, skates, and rays, to sort of fill important niches as these dominant predators within their area. So,
well, whenever you have important top predators like that, you can screw up the ecosystem by killing them, which we kind of do.
And it is. And the thing that most people don't know about, and is part of fascinating stuff about my work, is that elasmobranchs, those sharks, skates, and rays, they are very similar to us in that they grow very slowly. They often live very long. And they produce very few offspring throughout their lives. And so you can have a shark, that often doesn't reach sexual maturity until they're 15, 16, 17 years old. And so by killing them for food before they reach that size or that age, you can really decimate their populations pretty quickly.
Especially when you're doing it stupidly, and I hate to politicize this, but shark fins. shark fin soup. I mean, we're killing millions of sharks just for the fin.
Yeah, it's, that's, so in the United States, we have a very good regulated fishery for sharks. But the problem is when you get into other countries, third world or whatnot, that just, there's the lack of that structure and that regulation and that management. And you're right. Fins will go for $20 to $30 a pound, where the meat will go for 60 cents.
Yeah.
And
that's
so
weird.
an unregulated fishery like that can be decimating.
Mm-hmm. Well, what do we have for sharks out in the Gulf of Maine? What's predominant out there?
Well, let me tell you, Gulf of Maine is a pretty sharky place. It's pretty awesome. We have. I'll start from the biggest, and I'll work our way down to the smallest.
Okay.
The basking shark is the biggest one we have out in our area, and it'll get upwards of 35 plus feet in length. And I don't know if you've ever seen one of those on the water, but those things are amazing.
And they jump. I've seen two of them so far actually clear the water. I didn't know they did that.
I've never seen. That's the first I've ever heard of them jumping. But I
breaching.
know they come. Yeah, they come right up to the surface, and they're super impressive. I mean, we saw a couple of them last year. That it's like, oh my God, this thing is. It just takes your breath away when it's 10 feet longer than your boat.
Yeah.
But no teeth, and they come very close to shore. So that's the species that most people freak out about when they see that fin, because it is large. It does come close to shore, and if you were to look at it quickly, its body structure is very similar to that of a white shark. In fact, they're related to each other. So they can. Those are the ones that really scare people when they come close to shore. Of course, you have white sharks. They're the next largest species that we have up in our area, and I would suspect that as climate change keeps going, and as their food source continues to increase, that being seals, we'll see more and more of them kind of expanding their range down from the Cape. Because
we do have a lot of seals.
We do. We have a lot of seals in our area. There's a lot, from the Canadian border too. Up and down our coast, we have quite a few. We have a good abundance of seals. Let's put it that way. Mm-hmm. And then there's the mix of the other kind of group. You have blue sharks that we have in our waters. They're probably one of the most more common species that we'll find that aren't that are, I guess, traditional carnivore eater types. When you think about it. And then you have thresher sharks, poor-beagle sharks, makos. Those are all more offshore type species. We do have sand tiger sharks that come close to shore. Mm-hmm. Those are the ones that you often see in the aquarium with the big gnarly teeth, kind of swimming around. And then we have spiny dogfish, which is the smallest shark that we have. A lot of people call them sand sharks. And those are actually pretty good to eat, and they're trying to market them as actually they're fish and chips over in the United Kingdom, and we're trying to market them over here for that kind of stuff. So those are the ones we have. So we have quite a few. Yeah.
Do we have more sharks out there than people realize?
That's a good question. I think so. I think whenever I say, hey, we got like 9 species of sharks out here, people are like, what? I thought we just, we had, a couple. But there's an abundance of them out there, and that's actually a good thing because it means our ecosystem is pretty healthy. You want to see sharks out there.
Yeah. Well, our water is cold. What effect does that have on it?
Our water is definitely cold, and what's interesting is that the poor beagle, the makos, the threshers, the white sharks, and even the basking sharks are all related. And that they're all lamnids, and those are the ones that can maintain their body temperatures warmer than the environment. We haven't done enough work on basking sharks or threshers or makos or even poor beagles to understand how well they can do it, but we know they can. So water temperature really may not play kind of a factor in them. Plus, a lot of these species are highly mobile, right? Mm-hmm. So they can move to different areas if the water gets too warm or too cold for them. And that's often what we see with a lot of these different species. As when winter comes, they just kind of move out to the Gulf Stream, or maybe south of here.
Okay. But the seals don't follow them, or what other food supplies are they after? Just fish in general?
Most white sharks are the seal eaters. Mm-hmm. Everything else is eating fish. And so, bait fish, other things that might come in here, like makos, for example, depending on the diet study, one of the favorite things is bluefish. Mm-hmm. So yeah, they're out there, scoping out different types of fish species.
Do sharks eat birds at all?
You know what? Some do.
Yeah.
Tiger sharks are notorious for eating birds. Blue sharks will scavenge them, that's for sure. Mm-hmm. But tiger sharks will actually kind of time up their migration to different areas based on their food availability, and they'll wait for hatchlings to try to learn how to fly, water birds, and they'll kind of go up and just pick them off.
No kidding.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. But they do eat them. Yeah, exactly. Out here, it'd probably be mostly blue sharks that are kind of scavenging off of dead birds.
Well, because we have an awful lot of birds out there in the Gulf of Maine, between the puffins, the razorbills, all the Alcid family, and one of the things that in my reading about birds in general, because that's my thing, you look at all these puffin-related birds, and they're all black on top and white on the bottom, and the speculation is they evolved that way because they're just a little harder to see against the sky. And if there are things that are eating them, that's maybe why.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so sharks do the same thing, and that that counter shading is, again, it's something that makes them one of these amazing apex predators. So if you are a fish that's above them, right, kind of swimming around, and those fish are looking down, they see that dark, dorsal side, superimposed on the darker sandy bottom, right? So you don't really see something. And if the fish are below them and are looking up, then they see that white underbelly of that shark set against the sort of the sun coming down off the water. So sharks kind of blend in that way as well. So yeah, it's a great way of making yourself sort of invisible.
My guest is Dr. James Sulikowski, marine biologist and shark expert at the University of New England in Biddeford. I get out into the Gulf of Maine several times a summer, whether it's on a whale watch boat or specifically a trip for birds. There are a lot of birds out there, and I've often wondered if they have any predators while they're just sitting out there in the water. Do seals eat puffins? Well, this is Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine on Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket. This is Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket with Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine. Today's show is about sharks. Dr. James Sulikowski of the University of New England is a leading expert on the subject. A few moments ago, I learned that sharks eat mostly fish, but there are a few sharks in the Gulf of Maine that do eat birds. Blue sharks do it. I know that leopard seals in the Antarctic eat penguins, and I believe sea lions in the Pacific eat birds. Is there anything out there that's eating our birds?
You know what? That's a good question. Maybe a hungry human being. Yeah. Other than that, I just nothing out here really that's eating birds that I'm aware of. Mm-hmm. Other than the sharks.
Well, good. Then I'm glad we're all getting along.
Yeah, exactly. I have seen out there on the ocean water, though, birds going at each other. So who knows?
Yeah. Now, I don't remember ever hearing of a shark attack in Maine. Is it because we don't have that many, or is it because it's just too cold for us to go swimming?
You know what? I was at the beach, this last week, and let me tell you, it's definitely cold. It's a couple of things. One is that the species that we have up here typically are more offshore, and the ones that do come closer to shore want nothing to do with human beings at all. Like the sand tiger shark, we are so far from what they eat that there's not going to. We have no interest to them. And the white shark, that might be a stray white shark up here. It's just so few and far between that the interactions are exponentially just not going to happen. So the species that we have up here, typically more offshore, not aggressive, and it's also has a lot to do with the way that our beaches are set up. So when we go out to the beach, if we go out maybe 10 yards or so, like where our heads are under the water, like our sort of to the way geographics work, it gets deep quick.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas in North Carolina or Florida or Gulf Coast area, Gulf of Mexico, you can really wade out quite a ways, and you're still in chest deep water.
I had never thought about that because, now that you bring it up, I have seen that, and it never occurred to me.
Yeah, and so that has a lot to do with it. And plus, you have a lot more of those tiger shark, bull shark type species down south. I mean, the real limiting factor to a lot of those species is temperature.
Mm-hmm.
And so, if climate change continues to go kind of the way it's going, we could expect that maybe even some of those species would make it up in our waters at some point of the year.
Well, does anyone in Maine deliberately fish for them, either recreationally or commercially? What are we after?
Yeah, I mean, we do, actually. There's mako, poor beagle, thresher shark. Those are all sort of priced for their meat. It's good. I don't know if you ever had it, but it's very steak-like in its texture. And so you have guys that are going out and with tournaments, to try to land sharks. You got rod and reel guys going out. You can land sharks, when they're tuna fishing or whatnot. So yeah, you can go out and definitely land sharks, but there's not a real big, commercial fishery for it. It's more recreational.
Yeah, okay. Now, you did some research on the spiny dogfish because there's an awful lot of bycatch that happens with some of the trawlers. So what are we learning?
Spiny dogfish are an interesting shark in that there's an awful lot of them out there, mm-hmm. for one. And you think about it, and the best way I can describe a spiny dogfish is they are this opportunistic shark that just, will kind of swarm into a system. They get their name dogfish because they form these giant packs like dogs.
Huh.
And you can catch these things, these bottom trawlers that whether they're doing research or commercial fishing or whatnot. I mean, they've been able to catch 10,000. Imagine catching 10,000 dogfish. Okay, these little sharks in about 10 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. So, what these things tend to do is that they'll sort of move into a system and just sort of just start feeding on everything and move other commercially important fish out. Maybe eat what they're supposed to be eating. Maybe eat them a little bit. So they are one of those species that we consider underutilized. Mm-hmm. And that the commercial fishing industry, if they had a little bit better marketing, could make use of this little shark.
Well, instead of throwing them back overboard when you net them accidentally, it would be nice if you could cash in on them.
Right, exactly. And back in the day, the early '80s, mid to early '80s, there's a huge dogfish fishery, and there's a big export market for them over to Europe. Dogfish are great. I mean, you can use the whole thing. The head can be used for bait, the guts for fertilizer, the fins for soup or whatever, and then you got the belly flaps. You can send them to Germany. They make this strange type of jelly that they put on bread, and then they have you can get the actual fillets, which are really good to eat. Mm-hmm. Fish and trips. So the whole fish can be used. So we're working right now here at the University of New England on better marketing of that dogfish, and also looking at nutritional value to see how we might be able to utilize it a little bit better.
Well, when you market fish like that, something that maybe not has a savory reputation, one of the first things you do is change its name to something like Chilean sea bass.
I know, seriously.
Yeah.
I know. I was just reading an article about that, and it was cracking me up because I'm thinking, geez, yeah, that's I think actually, you know what, they're trying to do that, but we're not having too much success with it. Sometimes you see it as like Cape shark.
Uh-huh.
Or things like that. Someone wanted to, I think, name it gray salmon. Yeah,
gray salmon.
And I think the other one, which is pretty good. This was it was called like chip shark or something like
uh-huh.
that. So it's funny. I think we had some taste tests at one point and say, hey, what do you think of this? Oh my God, it's delicious. What is it? It's spiny dogfish. Oh, I hate it. And it's just So yeah, fixing that name I think is an important thing.
Well, we net a lot of them accidentally with trawlers. When you look at other methods of fishing, like swordfish, which tends to be long line, are we taking some big sharks that way?
You know, you do have bycatch with in any type of fishery, and so right now, one of the things that we do is we look at ways of changing that, developing best handling practices, and what do we know about the fish once they're captured? How can we make them survive a little bit better after that process has taken place? So there are you do accidentally land some species, but there's ways to try to avoid that, and I think we're making some good progress at it, but there's still a long way to go.
This is Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine. Dr. James Silikowski is my guest. We're talking sharks today. He's a marine biologist at the University of New England in Biddeford. Shark attacks on humans always seem to get sensationalized in the World Wide Web. Now, we've got sharks. Nobody ever seems to get bitten here. In fact, many of our sharks are pretty cool, and we're learning a lot more about them. We can put trackers on almost everything these days, even butterflies. So what are we doing with sharks? Stand by. This is Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket. Welcome back to Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine. Sharks. According to the internet, their natural prey is fish, seals, and surfers. Shark attacks have made the news quite a bit this summer, but always somewhere far from here. Sharks in Maine waters are a good thing. It's evidence of a healthy ocean. We're learning a lot more about our sharks, and one of the guys doing it is today's guest, Dr. James Silikowski of the University of New England in Biddeford. So do we track sharks in the Gulf of Maine, and what are we learning?
We do. Right. So we've tagged spiny dogfish. We put satellite tags on them and kind of reevaluated their movement patterns. And so, some cool things about the tags we use, these satellite tags, and I don't know how much, most people know about them, but they're great. You put this on a shark or any other fish that can kind of handle it, you get depth data, you get temperature data, you get a geolocation data, so you know where it's kind of at horizontally, so where is it in the water column, where is it moving around to. So you get all this great information, and it collects this data. It takes a data point, depending on what type of tag you use, from anywhere from every 2 to 15 minutes, for a year. Can you imagine collecting and archiving this data? And so this little tag is just attached to a shark swimming around out there, and it's collecting that data point every 15 minutes. And then after a year, there's a little signal on that tag that tells it to pop off. So it releases from the shark.
Okay.
And it floats to the surface, and it transmits the data to a passing satellite. And that passing satellite transmits it to us, and then we download the data, and we look at it, we model it, and we determine where the shark went, what temperature preferences it had, and what depth preferences it had, and all this kind of good stuff. So, but the catch is those tags are about $4,000 each.
Yeah. Do they float to the surface so you can retrieve them again?
If you get them back, you can. They call it. You can reuse it basically.
Yeah.
You can refurbish it, and you can take the old data off and then sort of blank it and put it back out. Mm-hmm. But the nice thing about the tags, if you don't find it, it's okay, because imagine this thing kind of bobbing in the ocean, and as it's bobbing over those 30 days, it transmits all of its data to passing satellites.
No, okay.
So we don't have to recapture the shark, and that's one of the most amazing things to these tags. So yeah, we're actually putting them right now on baby porbeagle sharks. We're really interested in baby porbeagle sharks.
Well, how far do our sharks wander? Are they staying in the Gulf of Maine, or are they going all over the globe?
We are still trying to figure that out. Most of our information right now is so limited on most species of sharks that we just don't know. We just don't know. We don't know where our mako sharks go. We don't know where our thresher sharks go. We don't know really where our blue sharks go. We have ideas that they're major wanderers, but we don't really know when and why they're going places. So those are some major needs that we have right now. I mean, there's but some tags put out on basking sharks. Those things go to South America. It's amazing, and then back. But what we're interested in is the patterns of the babies. So we're really interested in the baby sharks, these sharks that have just been born, and these sharks that are like 1 or 2 years old. And why are they here in the Gulf of Maine? Are they using it because of the water temperatures? Is there fish species here? How long do they stay here? Is it a nursery ground? And if it is, then what can we do to help protect certain areas so that the sharks can avoid being commercially caught and whatnot.
Well, if you're putting tags, which cost $4,000 on a baby shark, isn't it possible that another larger shark is going to eat that one?
It's completely possible. And that's a risk. And every time you put one of these tags overboard, it's like you do a little, you do some sort of prayer.
Yeah.
Because, you can put it over and the tag could get eaten by another shark. The shark could be eaten by another shark. The tag can fall off. It can just be a dud. And it's a frustrating part of it. But what we try to do, one of the things that we try to do is that to make this tag, when you put it on that shark, is to make it as little like a lure as possible. Kind of like bobbing and flipping around and whatnot. So we do all these kind of special things to keep it closer to the shark and whatnot. So, we've had some pretty good luck, and so we hope to keep using this stuff to get some better information.
Do you and your students actually get into the water and swim with the sharks? We
do not swim with the sharks, and I don't know if I will ever do that. That just looks too crazy. Actually, I don't do it. My students do it. So some of the work that we've done down in the Bahamas on tiger sharks, my students have gone in and kind of swam with them. So
grad students are expendable anyway.
They are. So I just keep a lot of them on hand. So if one goes, I can just put another one in place. It's like again, it's an amazing experience. These sharks that come to these cages and these other places where they're used to being around humans or whatnot. I mean, it's an amazing experience to see something that large in its natural environment.
Okay, well, if you had an elevator speech to give to the world about how can we coexist better with sharks, what would you tell the world?
Well, I'd say that, the ocean is their domain, and that we need to respect it, and, follow all the typical procedures that you would to be safe. And that's the best that you can do. And if you see a shark in its natural environment, I would soak it up and try to enjoy the experience as much as you can, because it's a rare event.
If I see that shark in its natural environment while I happen to be swimming, I may not enjoy it.
Probably not at the time. But it's like with anything else. You know what? You have to be safe, take precautions, and know that that's their domain, and that's the best you can do sometimes.
Well, I read that if you pee in the water, that can attract a shark. But frankly, if I saw a shark with me, I don't think I could stop myself.
Yeah, I think that'd be the natural reaction. Just lose control of everything. That's a new one on me. I don't think RP is gonna attract a shark to us. But what will is if you got a shiny type of a bracelet or swimsuit. If you are kind of flailing and kicking around, if you're swimming by somebody who's fishing and he's got bait in the water, those things are not good. Those are keys and cues that sharks are looking for. Other things, is dawn and dusk. Sharks have a very keen sense of sight, so they are able to. They have actually this thing called a tapetum lucidum, and it's like how cats can see, in low light conditions and whatnot. Sharks possess that same ability. And so that is another reason they're such good predators, is they can see these low light areas and kind of sneak up on these unsuspecting prey that can't. So, avoid those times. That's the best that you can do sometimes.
Well, I think as a public service, the thing I could do best is to gather up everybody's gold and silver before they go in the water.
You know what? Melt it down.
Yep.
Why not? I like that. I think I should, maybe we could work on that together.
That could fund your next grant.
There you go. I like that.
And with that, my thanks to Dr. James Sulikowski, marine biologist at the University of New England in Biddeford. Remember, before you swim in the ocean, send all your wearable gold and silver jewelry to me so that you don't attract a shark. You'll thank me later. We now switch from sharks to moose. I'm always astonished when I find out how many Mainers haven't seen a moose, or haven't seen very many. I'm always up in the North Woods, and I see a lot of them. I don't even think about it. They're just there. But what happens when you need to find one? In fact, you've got to find that moose in the next 4 hours, because it's your job to find it. Now the pressure's on. You've got to think like a moose. You've got to know specific places they might be lurking. You've got to know their habits, what they're eating this time of year, where they escape from the bugs. You've got to know how to sneak up on them so that the noisy people from away who hired you can get a good photo.
To where the moose has such poor eyesight, they cannot see an object clearly until about 25 feet away. So, that type of factor could give us a great opportunity of tricking them.
I'll tell you right now, when you've got to produce a moose on demand, it's a lot harder than it looks. Next weekend, I'll be on a moose safari with Northwoods Outfitters in Greenville. Hey, it's Moosehead Lake. How hard can it be to find a moose around there? Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine is brought to you by Hammond Lumber, Dice Arts, EBS, and Supercuts in Bangor, Brewer, and Old Town. Join me again every Saturday at 9, Sunday at 8, and online afterwards at 929theticket.com. This is Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket.